We agree with the proposals to halt military operations, but we proceed from the understanding that this cessation should be such that it would lead to a long-term peace and eliminate the root causes of this crisis. Immediately after the joint press conference of the leaders of Belarus and Russia, U.S. President Donald Trump stated that everything is going well in Russia. This means that very soon someone from the powerful team of American negotiators will be kicked out of their position or transferred to clean transgender people out of the Spinners Union of the state of Utah. Yesterday, Vladimir Putin publicly whipped and declared professionally incompetent those who, at the instigation of the British and Zelensky, convinced Trump that trying to corner Putin with the topic of a 30-day truce was an excellent idea. Italian journalist Angelo Giuliano, an open soul, wrote before this, "These clowns are preparing Minsk III and believe that Putin will fall for this scam. They are playing, quote, paper scissors while Putin is playing 4D chess." The respected Italian is actually very flattering to Trump's negotiators. They fell for a kindergarten-level scheme, which consisted of printing the phrase, "the ball is now in Russia's court," 1,000 times in Western media, so that a disheartened Putin would announce live on air that he cannot refuse the truce in front of the whole world. Ukraine has outplayed him. He surrenders. At the press conference, Putin really was slightly upset, because he couldn't believe that this was all the opposing side was capable of. He simply couldn't say directly that he sincerely pities Witkoff and his assistants patiently waiting in the next room, so he decided to encourage them, and even play along with them in some sense. During the worldwide broadcast, Vladimir Putin not only skillfully parried the thrown ball, but also managed to sign it, "Greetings from the Kursk region," fully understanding that prepared texts in the style of "bloodthirsty Putin refused the truce" were already lying on the desks of editors of all Western media. The Russian leader made a beautiful and unexpected move. Putin directly and publicly stated that the truce is a correct idea, and Russia supports it because this activity is aimed at achieving a noble mission, the mission of ending hostilities and human losses. But Putin showed that the Americans' proposal, essentially slipped to Trump by the British and Zelensky, was not a serious, well-thought-out project considering the interests of all parties, but a provocative dud. The Russian president did not criticize the idea of a truce. He simply asked several questions that dismantled it completely. How does the truce topic align with the situation in the Kursk region, where the Russian army has trapped invading Ukrainian units in a fire pocket that is about to physically close? Who in their right mind would just let go those who killed and tortured civilians? Who on the Ukrainian side will give the order to cease fire? Zelensky is illegitimate. The Speaker of the Rada won't be allowed to do it. For the Minister of Defense and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, it's not within their rank and against the law. Who and how will monitor compliance with the ceasefire along the entire 2,000-kilometer line of contact? Who will be responsible for violations? Who can guarantee, control, and verify that the respite won't be used for accelerated forced mobilization, arming, and training of new Ukrainian military units? Thus, in front of the so-called world public, the Russian leader dissected the complete unreality, inadequacy, and impracticability of such a frivolous proposal under existing circumstances. But Putin went further. If Trump's team are peacemakers, then the Russian team are peacemakers squared. The Russian president voiced a simple message. Cessation of hostilities should be such that it would lead to long-term peace and eliminate the root causes of this crisis. Because long-term peace is incomparably better than a temporary truce that still won't solve anything, but only prolong the suffering that Donald Trump is so dismayed about. These reasons have been voiced many times. Constant deception of Russia by the West, NATO expansion towards its borders, a Western-inspired coup in Ukraine, existential threats to Moscow due to Ukraine's potential NATO membership, militarization of a previously friendly state to Russians. It is precisely these reasons that the Russians are eliminating within the framework of the SVO, meaning they are essentially bringing closer long-term peace. Putin emphasized that all this consists of complex issues that need to be discussed, and discussed meticulously, meaning without haste, in detail, involving partners and colleagues. Rushing with this is unacceptable. And generally, as Putin stated, the idea itself of ending this conflict by peaceful means is supported by us. Against this backdrop, it is quite understandable why Zelensky threw a tantrum in Kyiv after the press conference of Lukashenko and Putin, claiming that Putin is preparing to reject the truce. The illegitimate colleague apparently did not watch the Russian president's speech. Trump, in turn, after the public blunder of his negotiators, decided to flex a little muscle and tightened restrictions against Russia, canceling relaxations for a number of Russian banks that were previously allowed to conduct certain operations related to oil supplies, and also ordered the resumption of supplying Ukraine with long-range GLSDB bombs. Apparently, after Putin's exposure session, the peacemaking game begins to deflate.